is recognized or is being used by another caller. VoIP users note that touch tones can be unreliable across the internet.
The sky and your spirit is one with me. Your wings span the mighty ocean. Your eyes see everything. The slightest of your motions can make the continents ring. Yet in all your might and glory, from the skies, leaving just another story midst millions of man-made lies. They tell of how you fell from the sky, your once proud.
All right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. Welcome to another edition of the Free American Hour. I'm your host, I am Clay Douglas, and my guest today is Stu Webb of StuWebb.com. Hello, Stu, how are you?
I'm good, Clayton, and I want to thank you for having me. It's always been my honor to be on with you.
Well, I appreciate that, and let me repeat here, my guest is Stu Webb. We've known each other for a long time, and interesting, you know, there's some stuff on the internet. Zion Crime Factory, one of the people that started out trying to talk about the Jewish issues, got involved with a guy named Mike Delaney, pro-think, somebody that Alex Jones didn't like much. And then suddenly Delaney's being accused of ripping off the whole website and taking it over and does such and et cetera, et cetera. And it just seems like this happens. Bo Greitz was angry at me because I blew the whistle on him and Linda Wagon. Leonard Horowitz even tried to use you to demonize me because I saw him transform a friggin' reptile or something, you know. It was like being in an elevator with in a scene of American Werewolf in Paris. And I tried to convince myself, you know, Stu, I really did. I tried to, well, he was just really angry at me. He was screaming a lot of fuck yous and stuff like that. And in the middle of a hotel lobby, and I walked up, put my finger in his chest, and I said, I'm afraid you're using that kind of language around the children. And he started, again, he was just screaming, you think I'm just another dirty Jew, don't you? And I said, well, I never did before then, but you convinced me. And we got, the manager of the hotel came over and said, you got to take this outside or something. And I went and got the elevator where I was heading in the first place. And he got in the elevator following me. And it's the first time, I mean, I'm an old biker, and I've been in a lot of fights, and I've been in a lot of situations, and I've had guns pulled on me and stuff like that. And it was the only time I really had a fight or flight reaction syndrome, you know. I mean, I'm from Texas. I like to fight, you know. It don't matter to me. But
I look at this, the old Marine Corps in me says, the bigger the more fun it is.
And there was no expiration date on that oath. But the point is, they've been dividing and conquering us. You're a conservative. I'm a liberal. You're a Democrat. Well, I'm a Republican. My God, that's two wings of the same bird, and the whole thing is to divide and conquer. Now, a long time ago, back when Cornwallis was surrendering or giving up to Washington or something, he told them that the Jews' religion will take over if you don't stop it right now, it'll take over, and that 200 years, this will be a Jewish-run country.
Well, Clayton, where I kind of look at things is I see that it's not all the Jewish people, and it's not the Christians, and it's not any of them. But what we do have a Zionist conspiracy that people have to understand, that we have the Jewish mob in America that is tied to the Bush crime syndicate, I call it. My son-in-law was, Jewish, supposedly, but he was a Khazarian. He was the Russian Jewish mob in America. He took over from Meyer Lansky, that goes way back in the 50s and 60s and 40s. And he was tied up with all these. He's still alive, hiding out in Cuba, because he knows there's espionage charges going to be brought against him. He's been down there for a while. He feared it. And so he faked his death down there in Arizona in 2004. But he's one of the Council of 13. And Larry Mizell and Daddy Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, Schrif is his real name, not Bush. It goes back, they changed their name a while back, their family did. And David Rockefeller and Meyer Rothschild and Anwar bin Shri, the rabbi in Israel, Pope Benedict, German connection. And then you've got William Grace of Bill Grace's brother of W.R. Grace and Company. These are the Council of 13. Well, it's actually the Council of 12, and then the 13th one is the devil. So they answer to them. It's mocking Jesus Christ, it's mocking God Almighty and God and 12 apostles, and that's what the council's about. But what's interesting about these cats and gators is these 12 crime syndicates that are running the world financially only controlled in 1981. They controlled 20% of the economy of the United States. Today, they're in control of 95 to 97% of the economy. According to the General Accounting Office's own estimates back in June of last year, they were in control of 95%. And 400 men made more money than half the entire population of 300 plus million in the United States. They made more money than 150 million people at the lower end of the totem pole. That's what Occupy calls 1%. And it's all been through theft, deception, narcotics trafficking, theft of government tax money, and the American people's pension funds. And it's the same people. And you are very correct. It's a Zionist conspiracy, and they're tied heavily within Bibi Netanyahu and top-level government officials inside of Israel. And I call them Christian ministers in this country are some of the biggest promoters. I call them pulpagoons because they don't have the Holy Spirit and the sermon of the Spirit to understand that it is a crime. And I'll name one in particular. This John Hagee, as far as I'm concerned, this guy needs duct tape, across his mouth and put on national TV with duct tape and put in handcuffs for promoting this. Because these ministers, so-called ministers, I call them pulpagoons, that really don't know, Israel's the chosen people. They don't know what the hell they're doing to this country. Either that or they are part of the conspiracy. They're giving them kick on this.
I believe that that story, my Mystery Babylon, I talked about the whole concept of Christian identity. And I don't have any problem believing that your ancestors and my ancestors walked across the Caucasus Mountains. Some might have been what we call Jews. Most of them were Christians. They crossed the Caucasus Mountains. They became called Caucasians. And, we turned left and the tribe of Judah went to Germany. The tribe of Dan went to Denmark. There's no lost tribes here. We just forgot who we are. And these imposters have studied, and they've been around for 2,000 years. Jesus called them the Pharisees, and he said, you're the Jews who say you're Jews, but are not. Now, let me share this. This is by Rachel Pendergrass.
Go ahead.
Throughout America and other white nations, Christians and Jews are steadily forming alliances. A quick internet search will show conferences, meetings, and dialogue between Jews and Christians. Preachers used to point out to their congregation that America was built on Christian principles. Now, without hesitation, they tell their flock that America was built on Judeo-Christian ideals. Without thought, Christian leaders, liberal, mainstream, and fundamentalists talk of the Judeo-Christian foundation of America and encouraging the follow of Judeo-Christian values and morals. To use the term Judeo-Christian is much like saying clean filth. Filth is not clean, and Judaism is not Christian. Now, just recently, the majority of the world mourned the death of the Pope, or the resignation of the Pope. This was written a little while ago. His biggest accomplishments was noted to be his bringing together of the Jews and Christians, yet many popes in ancient times warned against the teachings of the Jews. Jerry Falwell, Pat Robertson, John Hagee, Jack Van Impe, and dozens more like them have built their mere-sized ministry by promoting Israel as a political state and the Jews as a chosen race. Thousands of local church leaders are following this example. They are the Pharisees of today. A marketing point by Touchpoint Solutions, a Colorado Springs consulting agency hired by Israel's Ministry of Tourism, describes how to appeal to U.S. Evangelical. You persuade the top 30 Evangelical Zionists through face-to-face meetings to visit and promote Israel. Those named in a separate Touchpoint document who are the Christian Zionists use religious broadcaster Jerry Falwell, Christian Coalition founder Pat Robertson, Texas pastor John Hagee, and best-selling author Tim LaHaye. Sending a letter to the 100,000 largest evangelical churches and a postcard to 350,000 others, directing them to Israel's tourism site, GoIsrael.com. Conducting Israel Solidarity Days in 100 cities. Public prayer ceremonies will focus on Israel and its biblical influence. Privately, local evangelical leaders, with pastors, business people, or athletes, will be urged to make solidarity trips to Israel. Some will have their expenses paid by Israel. The idea is to sell the sellers, at this point President Butch Maltby, adding that the multi-million-dollar marketing plan is agreed upon in principle, and certain aspects depending on funding by the Knesset, the Israeli Parliament. Maltby described tourism as more than an economic matter. It's also a political tool. Every person who comes to Israel becomes an ambassador to Israel. Every tourist becomes a public relations person. And 18 national evangelical leaders, supposedly Christians, received the book Why Christians Should Support Israel by Rich Booker, a Texas-based Christian minister. The churches are our biggest problem with this. They are basically covered for a foreign country. It was set up by the Rothschild to be a safe country. After they took over, after they terrorized the Palestinians, they accumulated 500 nuclear weapons and threatened every capital in Europe, control every government here that bought into this whole global government scam. We are talking about treason here by the preachers, by our congressmen, who are bought and paid for by the Federal Reserve, another Rothschild entity that has been around for actually, as long as this country here, because Alexander Hamilton was the banker's man inside, working to destabilize and throw the founding fathers off track. Stu Webb is my guest. Let me let you respond to that, Stu.
Well, I'm in 100% agreement on what you've said, and the reason I say that is because, in 29 years of being a federal whistleblower and marrying into the crime syndicate, not knowing that I married into a crime syndicate until after the daughter of one of these Jewish bankers, top 13's daughter, my ex-witch doctor I call her, tries to murder our kid, and then they buy her out of it and terminate my parental rights. Still to today, I can't see my daughter because I got an illegal lifetime restraining order on me under a sealed case that I can't open, which is bizarre. But we'll go past that. Here's what I am aware of after 29 years of research and investigations and 30 attempts upon my life and and the whole bit, is that you're pretty much 100% correct. And it goes back to these Khazarian Jews, I call them. They really aren't Jews. If you go back to the biblical aspect of it, look at the Knights Templar bankers at the time that were around at the time of Christ, charging passage, the Templars. The King of England in 1500 decided that he was going to exterminate them because they were a bunch of Satanists, and they weren't Jews, and they were fake Jews, and that's what they've done to the Jewish people. The ADL is the worst. It's Abe Bachman. He's a slime ball. He's the Iran-Contra paymaster for drugs and guns. He was paymaster to Michael Harari, General Raphael Altan, and others.
Michael Harari, by the way, is mentioned in my book, Mystery Babylon. He was the guy that received all the cocaine. He worked for Manuel Noriega. He was Manuel Noriega's handler. He met the Mossad. They brought all the drugs in, and your President Bush, George W. Bush, was covering for the Mossad agents in Washington while he was CIA director.
Yep, and Michael Harari is head of the Mossad now out of Israel, and Michael Harari is dangerous, and so is Abe Foxman. This is Abe Foxman, and the Southern Poverty Law Center that's an Israeli Zionist organization that the one that ran it down there, he was accused of being a child molester by his ex-wife or attempted child molester. And every time something comes up out here on the internet against this so-called Jewish identity, they run immediately out there in the forefront. But I want to get past all that side of it. What I want to talk about is basically 4 months ago, Clayton, a intelligence agency, 16 U.S. intelligence agencies reported in their report.
Okay, hold stop for half a second here. Hang on, just a second here. They just crashed my recording here. One of them. I've got others working, and so I may be all right today. I still got a few things are working, and all right. My guest is Stu Webb, and he just mentioned something important that I wanted to get that recorded here. All right. Stu Webb is my guest, and he just mentioned something important. I had this up on my website last month. That 16 intelligence agencies in the U.S. pointed their finger at Israel as being the greatest danger to this country's security, far more than Iraq, Iran, or Afghanistan. And the reason we're in Afghanistan, folks, is because those nasty old Taliban were going to destroy the opium poppy, and we're in the process of destroying the opium poppy crop. So we sent our soldiers, we sent in Pat Tillman to protect these drug dealers, and this is what my whole story of Mystery Babylon is, folks. If you make any kind of donation to the Free America right now, I will send you, and do that by going to ClanFreeAmerican.com. I'll send you a copy of a 500-page book on Mystery Babylon and talking about the Christian identity. And the Jews are doing this too. They're infiltrating Christian identity. They are turning aside. They want you to hate people. They want you to, and they are the generators of hate. Abe Foxman. I ran Abe Foxman out of 2 or 3 towns. He was trying to sell his books there by sending copies of his divorce papers showing that he's a child molester and a homosexual, and he even had another man in bed with him and his wife on their anniversary. This is the kind of man, Abe Foxman. This is the kind of man these little Jewish trolls are on the chat rooms here that come in to try to disrupt, to try to make the host sound bad, to try to accuse people. And they've been doing that to Stu Webb and me for a long time here. Go ahead, Stu.
Well, in the 16, I'm not a U.S. intelligence officer, but Clay, I've had hundreds, of U.S. intelligence sources, and Interpol sources for years. And, you know, it's kind of like they finally started lining themselves with back in the early 2000 time frame because of the, you know, the information I was bringing forth. And there's even a audio tape of Gordon Duff, 3-hour interview I did with him back in December of Veterans Today, and they've asked me to be a columnist for him and so forth, and they are defense contractors, and, you know, they run all the 63 publications for the U.S. Department of Defense. And as he said, we've watched you for years, and he had before, you know, I've known for a while, but before the interview, he had agreed to do it with me to come public to give me credibility. And he did. And he said, you know, if it hadn't been for you standing in front of the freight train, the U.S. government wouldn't have even known about the Millman connection, about this Israeli espionage. Now, you know, in the 16 intelligence agencies report, that several people inside several of the agencies have talked to me about this, have said that this is the reason they outed Petraeus as CIA, and it was Division Number 5 FBI stooge girl down there in Florida that brought out about, you know, him supposedly having an affair. That was the spin doctor to get him out of there because they were going to, you know, they were after Israel. And what they say in that report is basically that my ex-father-in-law, Leonard Millman, his associate, front cut buffer, they call him a buffer, Larry Mizell, that runs MDC Holdings of Denver, that created these mortgages out of thin air, that they turned around and derivatized these mortgages, and they created, and I'll make the numbers real quick, they created $100 trillion worth of artificial mortgages. They derivatized them $1,500 trillion, and they've stolen, since bank bailout, they've stolen 10.5 million houses from people illegally by saying they own their mortgage when in fact they were paying mortgage to somebody else legitimately. They said that these same men, Leonard Millman, Larry Mizell, Daddy Bush, George Herbert Walker Bush, all three of his sons, Jeb, Neil, and George W. Bush, are all involved with Bibi Netanyahu of Israel, Michael Harari, and others in high treason, sedition, and espionage against the United States of America. They were involved in not only the financial meltdown, and they were the culprits, but they, and I haven't read the report, but these are the words that I've gotten from many sources on this that were privy to this report and read this report and were involved in creating the reports for the different 16 intelligence agencies, say that they attacked Oklahoma City, bombing. They were involved. They were involved in the 9/11 attack on America, and that they have stolen nuclear materials off Rocky Flats nuclear arsenal and stole them through Israel, that has supplied North Korea now with the first bomb that they got off, and other technology that made them, in case we put their electronics, U.S. satellites can no longer stop these weapons, and that now they're a threat to the U.S. because they can launch a nuke at us and it will hit us, that's supplied to other countries, and that they have been the primary suspects, not suspects, but the primary culprits, and that they're only keeping the Afghanistan war alive is because of opium fields, and those opium drugs are being distributed through the Jewish Russian Millman, my ex-in-law, who walked around the United States with a Russian diplomatic passport, who's hiding out in Cuba now. It's the reason they're accepting him in Cuba, letting him be down there since 2004, and that Mitt Romney, during the election, carried, and I have a picture of Mitt Romney, presidential candidate, in the right column, StuWeb.com, STWWBB.com, where Veterans Today put up the picture. Gordon mentioned it in the interview with me. And it's a picture of Romney with his Cuban KGB's daughters, his mistress, getting off an airplane to deliver drug accounts to Leonard Millman in Cuba while he was presidential candidate, and the bank capital he was holding several trillion, 3-point-something trillion dollars in drug money from Afghanistan that was being laundered through the Russian Jewish mob, and that the only reason that the war in Afghanistan continues at the taxpayers' expense and the life of our children, people's children going over there, American children, is to keep a drug war alive, that CIA remission flights are carrying the drugs, and that there are 3 U.S. senators involved who are Israeli senators, not U.S. senators, entered Israel in AIPAC, which Larry Mizell, bank bailout scamster, and Millman's attorney, his attorney, Norman Philip Brownstein of Denver, that hides their assets, their trusts, and so forth. It was all tied up with the Rose Law Firm, with the trust, and Hillary Clinton, and all the other stuff. Who was Daddy Bush's CIA counsel when he was CIA director, Norman Brownstein, by the way, that was director of Deutsche Bank, Canada, that was in charge of derivatives at Deutsche Bank, passing the artificial derivatives that caused a meltdown. They are 2 AIPAC directors, Mizell and Brownstein, AIPAC, American Israeli PAC, that is nothing but an espionage operation, and that they have 3 Israeli senators that call themselves U.S. senators. Senator John McCain of Arizona, Lindsey Graham.
I'm sorry. You mean Sumner McCain, the man that made all the propaganda films for the North Vietnamese?
Yes, and who sold out, by the way, and there's a second interview that gets into real details about his sellout with Gordon Duff, and how his father was the naval admiral that got him a presidential pardon for selling out while he sat in Vietnam in a hotel getting food and getting treatment and everything else, but he was telling everybody about flight plans and maps and everything else of pilots sold out to North Korea. He should have been charged of treason and sedition and hung for it, and collaborating with the enemy. Instead, he gets a presidential pardon by Nixon because his father, the admiral. And remember, John McCain, I had that bastard, by the hole, should we say, and I had him in the Keating 5 hearings because I caused those, that it was actually called the MDC 200, and that was MDC Holdings, has been behind every financial scandal and all the other stuff that has gone on since the 1980s involving the Bushes, Millman, et cetera. Millman's company, Mizell runs it for him. Brownstein was on the board of directors of Hillary Clinton's lawyer was on the James M. Lyons on the directorship. When the HUD scams on the directorship of it, and the list goes on. But John McCain, Lindsey Graham, and Lieberman, who I think resigned, are all benefiting and getting their cut of drugs out of Afghanistan in exchange for being those head committee members of Congress that has kept the war alive in Afghanistan and were part of the espionage here in the United States of America. Now, those punks, of course, did not want Mr. Hagel of Nebraska, former Senator Hagel, who's been confirmed as the new Secretary of Defense of the U.S., because he says, when he was Senator of Nebraska, he says, I'm not an Israeli senator. I'm a U.S. senator, because he saw everybody who sold out to AIPAC for money and sold out to this Jewish mob that controls America with Daddy Bush and the Clintons and so forth. And by the way, Clinton, in case people are unaware, her real maiden name was Rodham, R-O-D-H-A-M. She is also a Jew. And the fact that her father changed her name to hide her identity, or not Rodham, but Rodenhurst is her real maiden name, not Rodham, but Rodenhurst. But Hillary Clinton has hid that from the people. But the problem is they were the ones that came against in these hearings against Senator Hagel, because he says no to Israel. We have a 5-star general, Joint Chiefs of Staff, Dempsey, who was told Israel no after this intelligence agency report came out, when they're trying to get us to go to war with Iran because they want to take over the whole Middle East. They want all the U.S. to do their bid and do the wars for them. And when they were over there going to go in and attack the West and the Gaza Strip and all the other stuff, Hillary ran over there and did a spin doctor game with the Egyptian prime minister, president, and put a stop to it because Israel might have got their butt kicked by the Palestinians, the Iranians, and others at that time here not long ago almost caused World War III.
Well, now, let me just stop you for a second, because Albert Pike, the author of Morals and Dogma, he predicted that we would have 3 world wars, and this is a Civil War general working with the Masons. The Masons are a big part of this. The Bar Association, the British Accredited Registry, makes me feel like we're still under basically the English Empire. And whether the English Empire is Jewish or not, that's a real fine point. I know that the Rothschilds, the Queen has to ask the Rothschilds for permission to enter the City of London, is what I've heard.
Well, the person that she actually answers to, who tells her what to do, is the guy that runs W.R. Grace and Company. It used to be Bill Grace, but his brother took over. I'm aware of that. I'm also aware, as I named in the beginning of the program, who the 12 are. I think it's 10 of them or 9 of them, whichever it is. The others I don't know, but I've heard Warburg is one of the names. But Millman was high up there with all of them. Excuse me. What's amazing about this is they're all worth, these 12, are all worth around $80 to $100 trillion each. That's how much they're worth. Like, it's off the charts. And it's out of your pocket, my pocket, the American people's pocket, and everybody else's pocket worldwide. We got 12 crime syndicate members, all Satanists. They're practicing Satanists. They carve up little boys and girls, drink their blood. They go around having, this little sodomizing each other and sodomizing kids, and they're pedophiles. I mean, I've had them nailed for years in Denver, Colorado at the old Bari. On June the 21st and December 22nd, the summer and winter solstice, performing their human sacrifice. I mean, I've got this year, I think I woke up a lot of people because of the amount of kick count I had on my website on both of those particular time frames, those links, and I think people are starting to become more aware. But
I mean, just stop you right there. One of the problems that I have is there is a abusivehost.blacklist.com. This is some type of Jewish organization, and because I've got the profiles of the elders of Zion linked on my site somewhere, I am blocked in libraries, I'm blocked in Intel, I'm blocked in Intuit, and I'm blocked at Office Depot. You can't. I'm sorry, Mr. Duggar, we can't. It won't let us go into your website to get your business cards. Now, what they've done to me when I blew the whistle, whatever, to 9/11, there's an exaggerated case of Jewish lightning, killed a number 7 on the cover. They tried to kill me 3 times, basically, in a 4-month period. They tried to, when the accident didn't kill me, they tapped my phones, Auction and Converse did the tapping. And,
Israeli company.
What?
Israeli companies tied to 911. And also, they're the ones that control the U.S. Congress and Senate telephones. Did you know that?
Yes, sir. So it just confirms one of my. I've got 2 rules surviving this.
I have 2 rules. One is carry a 45, a 9mm, and anything else I get my hands on.
The rules I'm talking about is that because I ride a motorcycle, everybody in the 4-wheeler is trying to kill me. And secondly, every phone I use is tapped. They will not get me like that. I mean, this is what put me in the hospital, folks. I asked my son one question. Where do you want me to go now? All right. We have all right, Stu, you're back with me. Yes, sir. I think you're right. I don't think the Mossad conversation is.
Oh, they don't want it out that the head of the Israeli government, Bibi Netanyahu, and the Likud government are all part of the mob.
That's right. And Israel, I refer to it as a safe. They set that up just like a safe house. So, you know, the butchers, cronies, they can go over there and escape extradition, can escape prosecution, and you know, they own. I mean, it's like hard to do, Stu. I tell you, there's a couple of things I can't tell you. I can't tell you if the mafia took over the government or if the government took over the mafia. I can't tell you whether the president government or vice versa.
Well, it's the Council of 13 have taken over everything, basically. By the way, the Bushes are setting up banks, and Neil Bush is down setting up a bank regulation. We're aware of that, and that's their next haven when they think they're going to escape extradition side of treason and sedition one day if they're brought up on charges, and hopefully they will be as more people wake up. They're going to get tired of this, and you know, we're going to have one day probably civil war and unrest, and there will be a problem with these people because, you know, on just like the Declaration of Independence says, we have a right to remove them, to arrest them and remove them. As far as I'm concerned, that's what needs to be done. We need change in America.
They do need to be arrested. And that's the problem. Who do we get to arrest them, Stu?
Well, I think that now we're starting to see, in my opinion, I believe that the American people keep pressing. We have, you know, 23% official unemployment rate, even though they say it's around 10%, truly 23%. The CIA knows that. I have somebody that monitors those kind of things for intelligence, or for the Central Intelligence Agency, and he gives me feed on that. And, you know, they're afraid that at 25 to 26%, they're going to have to declare martial law to keep from having unrest in the country. Well, you know, they want to make people, the fear factor, the Alex Jones type, little APEC stooges that are out there, all part of Jewish identity crap, you know, want people to believe that, oh, we're going to have the troop shooters in the streets. No, that isn't true. Matter of fact, veterans, Senator Gordon Duff put out, and some of his other colleagues have put out some excellent stories on this crap and who some of these websites are. Amy Jones, they've been promoting the spirit factor of U.S. troops executing American people to all lies and all this other crap. They're part of the promoting of the spirit factor, and so people need to get fear out of them, realize that this isn't going to happen. And the Department of Defense Secretary will not allow it to happen. General Dempsey has said he will not allow that to happen. And they're fed up with all this espionage. They want to arrest them all, quite frankly, right now. But, you know, the military has never done that. It's going to have to be the civilian side, push the buttons on the doors to open up the jail cells. And so it comes back to Eric Holder, who's a cover-up meister for this. You have to remember who was Eric Holder, the Attorney General of the U.S. currently. He's the attorney for Mark Rich, another Israeli Mossad stooge that's hiding out Switzerland, run Glencore Commodities, and every time we go to the gas tank or the gas pump, we pay about 5 cents on the dollar extra. So Glencore Commodities and Daddy Bush all can make their money off the commodity trading on oil that affects us at the oil pumps. And Lenny Brewer, who has covered up Annie Brewer, his partner, that's Mark Rich's attorney, that they got Bill Clinton to get that presidential pardon. He had to resign recently, Clayton, because of Frontline doing specials on him and showing that he was covering up all this crap pertaining to this bank bailout and so forth, involving Millman and Mindell, all of them, this Jewish mob, American Jewish mob. And so he had to resign as a result of that because no prosecution. Now we also have a good pal, Elizabeth Warren, up on the Hill starting to make some noise on Senate Banking Committee. and I hope that things are going to progress there. I'm not going to get into things, but I've got some people working with her. I'm hoping that we're going to be able to put the finger on them and shut them down, but they need to have their assets confiscated. When you have 12 men, Clayton, and 10 of them are in the United States of America. Meyer Rothschild is in New York. David Rockefeller is in New York. Leonard Millman's in Cuba. Larry Meisel's in Denver, Colorado. Daddy Bush floats around the world all the time, but he's usually confound in either Texas or up Maine as his primary locations. And the list goes on. Most of them are in the U.S. They can be arrested. Their assets can be confiscated. I put my finger on $30 trillion worth of assets here in the United States in commercial buildings, 500,000 apartment units. That's the largest landlord in the United States, Evangelical. And these other entities that they've been spinning off of it since I've been identifying this quite some time. They built most of the shopping centers and most of the sky rises in America. Almost everything on every street corner, even though it has a different name, corporate name, and goes back to trust and so forth. I put my finger on tons of that stuff.
What about Capper? And let me also ask you about one of my papers on my show, and that's Grandma, or VK Durham, who controls the VK Durham, or the Durham Trust, which is the Peruvian it's worth trillions of dollars, and what Bush and Clinton and the whole Bush thing. And by the way, there were 3 Bushes were listed in the World War, the publication put out in World War II, Guide to Jewish Soldiers and Sailors, and they were talking about Jewish heroes in the Revolutionary War, and one of those was Colonel Bush, and another Colonel Bush, and another Major Bush. That worked with supposedly under General Washington's command. But Carl told us that if we allowed the Jewish religion would take over this country at some point in time.
That's very true. Now, the gal that you mentioned, I dealt with her way back in the early 2000 time frame, and she's hard to deal with, or at least I found her to be. But she was correct, and her husband was a colonel, and he was weird. But she has no control of that trust, even though it was in his name and sport. Here's the problem with all these trusts and all this other stuff: is Dad Bush takes it. I'll cite an example, and she'll never get any place with it. She might as well just hang it up, forget about that, forget about the money side, thinking she's going to receive something. Here's what it amounts to. Little to his run an operation for the United States government for a number of years, since the 1981 frame. And he was appointed by Ronald Reagan, what they called the Reagan-Mitterrand calls. And he had an operation to do many things. One, his operation was to break the Russian ruble. He was successful in his team. This was U.S. Treasury, counterintelligence, CIA. Leo was one of the top spooks we ever had. Matter of fact, I had a conversation with him a couple of weeks ago. I've known him. He works with and he's associated with Gordon Duff. He's associated with others. Everybody knows it, Tom Hannigan and others. And here's what the deal is. He was given almost $4.5 trillion initially between the French government, the U.S. government, the Chinese government, the British government, and the German government to break the Russian ruble. They kicked it in what they called the Reagan-Mitterrand calls. They had other operational sides to that I cannot discuss. Some of it's not privy to me, others I'm aware of, and I won't discuss it. But one of them was break the Federal Reserve, and they weren't successful. Well, when Daddy Bush took over from Ronald Reagan, became president of the United States, which he was president behind the scenes to some degree, running a side operation of a duplicate Iran-Contra, drugs and guns, where there was a legitimate side of things going on, and he duplicated it, and it got so convoluted that it was pathetic. Well, when he took over, he basically jailed Bill Wanta in a dungeon Switzerland. He took control of the American trust that Leo was in control, like Brum has been. Well, her husband's trust. She'll never get it. But the difference was this. It took Leo 30 years. It took him going before the Supreme Court back this past fall. And it took Nancy Reagan and others putting into this. And it was kind of like, put to me this way. Trust and that control of that money grew from $4.5 trillion to $30 trillion in the past 20-some-odd years. And this was money was allocated by Ronald Reagan when an intelligence officer's operation is over with. They get 13%, which is the norm of profits, which is a normal thing with the U.S. government when they're running covert operations of state. Leo was entitled to that. Leo has $4.5 trillion deposited. They have $7 trillion deposited in Virginia right now, and $4.5 trillion is going to be paid out to him soon. Jack Lewis said he signed off on it. Everybody's going ballistics over it, and he's going to pay an income tax on $1.5 trillion. He's going to be paying $1.5 trillion soon to the U.S. Treasury, which they keep trying to do. Now, Christine Lagarde, the head of the IMF, a good gal, former French intelligence, former French finance minister, has been trying to clean things up as well, and all this derivative problem and all these banks for the IMF. And, France got their money. They kept out of this Reagan-Mitterrand protocol. They got their money back. The Chinese got their money back. And, they loaned money to Spain and loaned money to Greece that kept them from collapsing. And Leo wants us trying to pay this money, and Bush doesn't want, should we say, Leo had to take this $4.5 trillion and get up the other $30 trillion and stay alive, and I'll leave it at that. But this is, there's a lot of people out here with a lot, they have spouses that were military, like Durham and others. They never get any place, Clayton. I just tell you that right now because I've watched this thing where we have a U.S. intelligence officer right now. This is under DOD control right now. We have a U.S. new Secretary of Treasury that has signed up on this. Jack Lew said, put money in the Treasury, solve our current economic problems. You've got $1.5 trillion to spend, U.S. government, and never seen such resistance. And his daddy said, over my dead body. Well, it might be over, quote unquote. I don't want to say what he said, but we're going to see a lot of things happen possibly from this. But
let's talk for a minute about what's going to happen. Now, I'm not Alex Jones, and Alex, by the way, I promoted him. I helped him get started. I interviewed him, and I let him on my expos when Bill Cooper was warning me about him.
Yeah, I remember Bill. They whacked him.
2 weeks before that, I was supposed to get with Bill Cooper, and we were going to combine Veritas and the Free Market and our radio shows and work together. 2 weeks later, he was dead. 2 months later, they tried to kill me. And, it's no accident, suddenly it's no accident when somebody shows up bragging about, you've been listening, okay? Well, you can thank us for that. So,
Clay, I want to inject her. I've known you since way back. We met in, I think it was 94, 95, 86 in that time frame. I think in Vegas. I've been on your show way back years ago several times. I've known you, and you've been out and hammering the hell out of them. And you've been on target with the Jewish connection, even though maybe people that understand what now, especially after, as many told me, Stu, you stood in front. Like Gordon Duff said, it came public that you stand front train, freight train. If it hadn't been for you, you would have never known who the people really were. But it does come back. And it isn't the Jewish people itself. The true Israeli bloodline of the 12 tribes. It's this fake Jews that want everybody to think that this is anti-Semitic. Anti-Semitic is anti-Jewish. It's actually the Semitic work, Arabs and others that people don't understand, but they've got this big front going on. It's all tied to this mob, and when it passes hatred of Gentiles, or should we say Israelis, or Arabs, or anything else, we're being controlled by a fake identity Jews out of Russia, Khazarians, who control our U.S. government and who control the Israeli government, and they keep using that our kids go to war for their profit, and they're using our military and our government because we're the most powerful, the USA. They're using us, the American people, and our kids. And we're dying for a bunch of mobsters who are in control of these two countries in particular. And it's all intertwined, and it's all this big facade over here and big facade over there, and it's time to shut them down. It's time to keep exposed, keep them on the front lines, keep telling the American people the truth.
I feel the same way. Let me interrupt you for just a second here. I feel the same way. And the ADL will tell you that I started the militias. They tried to give me, blame it all on me. I remember the way Foxman in their report. They wouldn't interview. They would interview me on CNN. They'd get promotion in there. You can have my gun when you take it from my cold dead fingers. Well, I started the militia, but guess what? I did it, folks, in the governor's office of my state. And the militias were the exact right thing to do, still the right thing to do, if we could get honest people like maybe Duff or you or me to command it. But what they do, and they did this, remember the Tri-State militia?
I remember. So infiltrated.
$1,776 a month of the FBI was paying them to destroy the militia movement.
I remember Time Magazine had me as and they took, and here Time Magazine had done stories for me, and about the Denver crowd, exposing Silverado, my ex-in-laws, bank, all that. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm here. We're still
okay. And, here they had done that, and the Denver Post used those stories for me, and they bought that out. And here I get a nice fold out. I'm in that fold out. One of the 5-star generals of militias, controlling 38 states. Well, yeah, I created a militia, but monitored gold founder Stu Webb, an anti-Semitic who made death threats to Jewish families in Denver. Never heard. No anti-Semitism to me. My daughter's a Jew by her mother. Should we say, an Israeli by her mother, even though it was a crime syndicate, part of this satanic crime syndicate. And I don't have anything against the Jewish people themselves, these mobsters. But what did they put on the page of the Denver Post in 1995 after they blew up the Oklahoma City building, trying to blame it on the militias and other people, talking to Tim McVeigh, them, not us.
By the way, Tim,
the FBI's monitored by the FBI, domestic terrorist team as potentially dangerous. Front page Sunday, Denver Post, Time Magazine. I've been there just like you were, Clayton. And in those Southern Poverty Law Center reports that were coming out, the AL was pushing. And there are a bunch of pathetic nutcases.
There's real haters here. We don't hate anybody. People ask you, Clay, why do you hate the Jews? And my response is, I don't hate the Jews. I kind of admire them. If white boys had those together as the Jews do, we'd own the Federal Reserve, we'd own the Bank of England, we'd own the International Monetary Fund, we'd control all that, and it would be good for the people. Under the Jewish control, and this ain't nothing new, there's no such thing as the New World Order. We're talking about these Pharisees. They killed Jesus because he was the first rebel that basically solved the problem we got today. How do we fight evil without becoming evil?
He came to save them. You know, Clayton, I want to touch on something. I think that a lot of people don't understand. They need to go back to the time. It's not the true tribes of Israel and those that came from Israel and have that bloodline. It's the fake ones, like, you know, go back to your Bibles, folks. You know, I believe in Christ. I have a strong faith in Christ and God. He's done things that I could never understand, but I'm still breathing after 30 attempts. And if you read Genesis 3:23, 3:13, I think it is, and you see where Eve says in the Garden of Eden, you know, eating of the apple, he beguiled me. And she had a dual conception. She had sex with the devil, with a fallen angel, whatever you want to call him. Okay, there was a dual conception. There's the first murder came from. Cain and Abel killed his brother. It was in the bloodline. Okay, people don't understand that Genesis 6, where it says the fallen angels mate with humans. I am beginning to believe that these 12 families in particular, and these 12 individuals may have that bloodline today. And I'm a firm believer because Ed Slade, that was a U.S. scientist, was credited for the Apollo landing on the moon. He stood those bastards, gave him credit. He says Apollo landed on the moon not because of jet propulsion, but because of their anti-gravity. And he worked with the aliens, so-called aliens at Area 51. He was Jewish, but he says he came to know Christ, and he understood that. I said, Ed, if you know that, when you worked there, would you have these projects for them? He said, oh, because they're fallen angels. He said they are the fallen angels, and they showed up, you know, in our time in Roswell, and then it was the connection to the humans again. That 1954 to 2012 agreement, and I've got stuff up on my website about Ed Slade and so forth. And my website, by the way, folks, is being redesigned for mobile apps, be able to get on your cell phones and iPads here, hopefully by the end of the month, you know, clean up everything. And I'm just kind of like putting everything on one page, all the links to my site, so you'll be able to go scroll down one page, and there are all the links of all my stuff over there that I've put up. But Ed said, repeatedly, he says, we have to look at the bigger picture. He says they're cloning, you know, they're building these bases on Mars and the moon. That's where all this money's gone, according to sources of mine. These 1,500 trillion they've stolen in the past 10 years under these derivatives and artificial mortgages, that they're building bases. They're you know, kidnapping humans. The whole bit, and these 12 are in control of all this crap, and they're in control of us, and they are bringing about.
Matter of fact, I wrote a book about this, almost two actually, one about the future, one about the past, going back 10,000 years to where these fallen angels, so-called fallen angels, were in control. We're in this planet. We've been slaves on this planet for hundreds of thousands of years. The Bible goes back a short time. I believe we've been, and the reason the UFO thing is so top secret, you got the men in black, is very simple. They don't want you to know that we could have lunch on the moon and be back here for sure, without using a drop of juice.
Yeah, you got it. And, you know, it's kind of amazing, but they're screwing the planet up down here for us, the human race. And they're constantly doing this cloning and Hope Arkansas. And they're constantly doing different things, genetic engineering. What is this all about? It's about the evil that we are up against, that God said he cast them out of heaven and cast them to the earth. We're down here, humans. We have power and authority over them. I've seen the devil, Clayton. I had him in my bedroom when I was with the witch doctor and cast him out in the name of Jesus and the blood of Jesus, and he went right through the front door. Most dark thing I've ever seen in my entire life, and it's off the charts. But that happened. We have power and authority over them. And we have power and authority not only to cast them out, but we have the power and authority to get rid of them. Let me just stop. Let me stop for just a second here, because one of my favorite quotes, Jesus,
is that he said, you can do what I've done and more. I wrote books about this 45 years ago. They'll be released this year, hopefully. Stu, if I've got some, there's very few of us. I'd say we are the remnant. We are the people that are trying. We are watchmen on the walls. I was sent here back in 1946 after they blew up the first atomic bomb there, and I ended up living across the street from where they blew that up. Now I don't know, it'd be just coincidence, right? It'd be just coincidence, but I kind of the same way when I started the Militias and the Free American. It was because I said I could not sit back and watch something like Waco happen again. I got to do that without doing something, without trying to do something.
Yeah, well, I was in a political prisoner when Waco happened, and I couldn't believe what I was in. Of course, they dismissed the charges against me. That was silenced me, kept me for that 10 months. But, after that, that's one of the reasons. And many others, I created a militia and don't want to get into it. And there are things that are still in existence. And as far as I'm concerned, the only way that anybody should even be so infiltrated today, that's the reason I broke up Goal back after I started it. But yeah, the people remained intact, county to county, city to city. But we've got to on the same page, and everybody needs to. I keep pushing for the recall of all you congressmen and senators assigned for the Patriot Act, signed the NDAA Act, the Detention Act, without trial or without going before court. They committed a violation of their oath of office, which is like a corporation in their fiduciary duty. They have violated their oath of office, pulled, defend, and support the Constitution, signing off on that. Therefore, you do a recall. And it's pretty easy to do a recall. I'm trying to get somebody, an attorney, to work up a boilerplate, should we say, that we can all use to put up on, internet sites and spread it. And it's pretty easy. You just draft it up, take it to your Secretary of State's office, you register it, you have a certain period of time according to each and every state to go in and you pay a fee and to go in and get the signatures required for legitimate voters. And if Occupy and all the We Are Change and all the other movements and everybody out here would do that state to state and go after the 435, not all new 100 new faces, because we haven't determined who the bad guys are yet. Those other 435 that are up there are pretty damn corrupt, and their answer to AIPAC, their control, and the Israeli-American Pact, which is nothing but the Mossad operation inside the U.S., this crime syndicate, tied to the ADL, tied to the Jewish display, tied to the Southern Poverty Law Center, the Jewish mob in America that never has left, okay? And if people...
never went to jail, Al Capone did. Now, I'm almost out of time here, Stu. Let me tell you, I want to have you back on. Maybe tomorrow, if you could do that.
I would do that, and we could finish this discussion.
You have really hit it here. If we don't work together, folks, we're screwed. You will be in that concentration. You'll be in that detention center, and we've already got them. They're called federal prisons. Ayn Rand was absolutely right. She said they have no control over honest citizens, so they have to make criminals out of us. They're going to try to do that, stroking the pen. Remember what Bill Clinton do, stroking the pen law. That's pretty cool, huh? Obama's going to make guns illegal, and if you own a gun and you refuse to turn it in, you're going to be an instant criminal, just like somebody smoking a joint in Texas 40 years ago. You could have life for what you had in your pocket. That's a police state, folks. We are seeing it in full now. You can take these OxyContin and you can take these sleeping pills. You can take these Quaaludes, and all you gotta do is just check with your doctor, give it to you, and then we got a 200,000% for the pharmaceutical companies. And it's the pharmaceutical companies that are protecting the heroin there. This is their source. This is what they like the drug zone. So they got an inside deal. They can get heroin in the country.
And you know, these pharmaceuticals that come back to these small families, they own everything. They're controlling 90% economy. In 81, they only control 20% plate. We have to shut them down, take their money back, get this Congress and Senate, these criminals, out of office, cut the head off snake, I call it. You go after a snake, you don't cut its friggin' tail off, it heals itself. You got to cut the head off to get rid of the problem that we have. Americans need to join forces and do this. This is a peaceful way to do it without it seen in a violent form, because I guarantee you, they come for the guns, there's going to be civil unrest like nobody's seen.
Well, I have answers to that, Stu. I have answers to that. I come up with a plan for Liberty Villages, and it's not just about farms and ranches. You can do a Liberty Village in square block and protect the family. We've got the schools. You don't go to Timothy Bible College and Little Red Schoolhouse right now.
You know, it's a matter of reaching out to, and we should discuss this more, because I know we're almost out of time. We need to reach out to neighbors' homes. We need to be knocking their door and saying, hey, you know, I'm your neighbor over here, and I want you to be aware that these things are happening right now. Because here's what we have, in my opinion. I've seen this awakening is huge, and it's mainly young the population. There's a lot of us old guys, my age. We're waking them up and have been for years. Okay, and we've got a little bit older generation. They're worn out. They're old people. They sit around in front of the TV. They don't get on the internet. They're on disability. They're on Social Security. They're not going to be able to help in battle, should we say? But they are not only voters, they are ones that can sign to remove Congress senators. They need to be what the problem is. We need to start reaching out. Just know I love the Occupy movement. They did me a favor by identifying, and identifying, but come out about the banks and so forth. But we need to push prosecution of these people. And the only way we can do it is we've got to get rid of this Jewish control over the United States Congress and Senate. This Jewish mob, these 12, the Council of 13, that are a bunch of satanic worshipers.
And let me tell you, I keep trying to tell people, Ben, it ain't, if I talk, Clay could just do so much better if you didn't talk about the Jews. Yeah, if you didn't talk about marijuana, you could do so much better. Let me tell you something, folks. That ain't from a speech. That is control. And these elitists, these reptilians, these Neanderthals, whatever they are, they're the ones that control the money. And your founding fathers told you if you ever allow the banks to issue your money, private banks, issue your money, the banks and the corporations that spring up around them will leave your children homeless in the land of your country. We've got how many millions of people out of their homes, kicked out of their homes? We gave a president on that revolving door before Obama. And the bankers that print money at your expense and loan it back to your government, he handed them $2 trillion of their own dollars.
It's amazing.
Folks, that's insanity. All of these people ought to be put in jail. This is what they did in Iceland. You haven't read about it, have you, folks? Because they don't want to tell you that the Iceland, and I even applied for citizenship there. They kicked the bankers out and gave the money to their people. $2 trillion to the banks that printed the money, folks. Your government could have given that to you. You could have turned around and handed it back to the bankers and bought your property free and clear.
I tell you what, Clayton, you're 100% correct, and that's what happened. We were hijacked in 1913. Henry Ford said it as well. He says the end of America, all you have to do is take over the money supply and it will be the end. And that's what's happened. They have made it the end. And it's generational Satanism is what it's all about. Daddy Bush's father, Prescott Bush, financed Adolf Hitler, Brown Brothers and Harriman. And the whole bit during World War II, he was charged with trading with the enemy. Look who was charged with trading with the enemy right after 9/11. Lord Millman, my ex-Inland City Corp. AIG was charged Walmart was charged. Several of them were charged with trading with the enemy, and people don't even realize that, and they got off of the $2,000 fine instead of all of them being carted up to the gallows.
You know the really sad thing about that, Stu? Germany was the enemy. Hitler's people weren't the enemy. They had 3 communist-controlled countries that ganged up against the one people that had taken their economy back, that had kicked banks out, that had kicked the Jews out, that had kicked the communists out. And remember the Rabbi Weiss's quote, some call it communism, I call it Judaism for the masses. And
I want everybody to take a look at what veterans today, they better be damn fair in their exposure of these people. VeteransToday.com. Now, I put the stories on my website, the ones in particular that have shown who this mob is, the APEC crowd. They have been really pounded out. Now, remember, this is the Department of Defense, folks. U.S. Department of Defense, good guys that control these 63 publications have been really fair in analysis of what the real problem is. They have identified those Alex Jones and the others in several of their articles they have written, some of the others that are out there. You need to look. I've been putting them up in particular on my website, right home, so others, patriotic Americans, could identify because they're cranking a lot of information out, and you need to be looking at this.
That's I promote Gordon Duff, and what I'm saying right now in promotion to you, we haven't disagreed on a single point today. I think if you take one prayer block as an example, I'll provide you with the paperwork, I'll provide you with the documentation, I'll provide you with the names and addresses of resources. But if we, it's really simple, fairly simple, folks. I ask myself, and I'm talking with Stu Webb here, StuWebb.com. I've asked if we grow our own food, dig up that crabgrass backyard and garden in, if we generate our own energy from exactly what God gave us, the wind and the sun, if we catch if you don't live in Colorado, you can put a rain barrel under your roof and collect water, which, by the way, folks, is, hemp and hydrogen 2013 ought to be the slogan of any political party out there. And if we did that, we wouldn't need the banks or the government for nothing.
And Clayton, my forte in my business has always been for 37 years home building and remodeling, and I've even installed 3 solar systems, and it's dollar when it comes down to it. It's pretty easy. All you need is for the average American is an electrician to hook up, but you can buy component parts out here off the internet, and wind turbines, little wind turbines that go on the roof to produce. Not these big windmills, but little turbines like a little vent turbine that generate electricity. They're only about $350 off the internet. You can buy the full text now for about $800 a piece, 2x4 that produces 140 watts of power. The key is sizing of the system, and you get the, if you're blowing out 2,500 kilowatts a month, you need a 3,500 watt inverter because of the conversion rate, 100%. And those are only about 3,500 hours roughly. If you use more than that, go to the 4,500. And you need about 2 dozen batteries at $100 a piece. You need $1,000 with the electrical cable. Should we have an electrician hook it up and so forth? And you can be totally off the grid.
Well,
and then
you're going to do that in your block, folks. We got Sheriff Rich Mack out there. He's real. He's organizing the constitutional supporting sheriffs. He's got over 300 of them right now. We got another guy right down here in Texas, WRAM, and that's well-regulated American militias. They have started a militia in their county right there on the border because they're working for the sheriff. And we ought to be backing our piles, we ought to be backing constitutional supporting sheriffs with the militia. It's the way we need to do it. And Stu, I'm bringing you back on tomorrow. We got an hour and a half on today. I appreciate that. And we lost some here and there. Some of the computers still aren't up. But they are afraid, are scared to death, that we made that Lynn Horowitz and Sherry Kane can't divide us. And if they can't divide us, we can't be conquered. And I don't want to
tell you, if I can add to this, I always thought Lynn was a pretty good guy, but I mean, Sherry Kane came to his life, and who she tied to? CIA Bar Hartwell, a disinformation campaign. I call it the good cop, bad cop, with supposedly Kenadachi of EducateYourself.org. They all work together, and the guy's dead. Kenadachi's been dead for 20 years, but the guy is on government payroll. Veterans today, ironically, I talked to Gordon about this, and they came out with a story shortly thereafter because they had done some massive research, the DOD did, and it's called Trolls, and it's on my website, Left Column, Stu Webb Breaking News 2012. Scroll down to Trolls on the Internet. Trolls and students, they did a beautiful job about working for the government, the mafia, the ADL, CIA, and other organizations for 20 to 25 hours an hour out there pushing their propaganda for them, including talk show hosts. Most of them are out there today.
That's right. That's right. They come on my chat room and go, I get $400 a month for fucking with you,
Yeah, I know. I've been after me song for so many years. It's pathetic, just like these nutcases, so-called religious nutcases. I mean,
one of the stories that I'm going to put back up on Facebook, because I think we ought to be thinking about it, is that the story of Ron Wyatt, man that found the Ark, the Noah's Ark. He also found the Ark of the Covenant, and the story about finding the blood of Jesus on the Ark of the Covenant, where it was buried beneath the cross that Jesus was nailed to.
Where the ground cracked open, from the earthquake, and his blood dripped down on that ark. And yeah, I've seen all the videos on Ron Wyatt. It's ronwyatt.com or ronwyatt.org. That's a beautiful place. People need to see it.
He was talking to us. He said, I may not know why I do this, but you need to tell people about the Israeli tech, the Jewish tech that's looking at a microscope, 2,000-year-old blood, after telling Ron Wyatt that this can't be done. Blood's dead after 2 weeks or a month. And they looked up and started screaming, "This blood's alive! This blood's alive!" And it had what? 24 chromosomes. The only human blood in existence ever that had only 20 chromosomes, 23 from the mother and 1 from...
And what was the message of that whole thing? It was God Almighty telling us back in 1985, we discovered that, including where across the Dead Sea, where Moses took them out of Egypt. And they were there, and he showed where he banged on the mountain, the rock, because he got ticked off instead of his faith, and he got stuck there. Everybody else went to Israel 40 years later. But where they showed the chariots and everything in his videos, where the submarine went down there, and they showed where God parted the sea. What was all that purpose? It was to show us in this time that the Bible is true. The Bible is true. Maybe words have changed, but the basic premise and the story, one book that has lasted 2,000 years.
The history of
the highest-selling book.
Folks, it's only a small part of our